Linda and Charlie Bloom, welcome again. Thank you for these series of interviews that you've agreed to. So we covered the last topic we covered was the sparkle of a new relationship is always temporary. That was really interesting and insightful. I'm sure all listeners, viewers will find that interesting. However, this time the topic is so this is from your book, just to clarify. So it's from a book called 101 Things I Wish I Knew Before I Got Married. So if you have that handy, feel free to just bring it to the screen. So if any of the viewers would like to have a read for themselves, this is one of the sections from this book. Even good marriages have recurring seasons and there can be some hard winters. So the reason I thought this was valuable and interesting is, again, it's a bit of a theme. I've picked some of these topics from your book in that sometimes couples, individuals can compare themselves, right? It's like, well, is my marriage a good marriage? Is it a secure marriage? Is it a healthy marriage? I look at others and, they have such a great marriage and, I can't believe what I'm stuck with and whatnot. Or people, see you and they're like, oh, you two are just such a wonderful couple, and and not having no one has a real view of what goes on inside a marriage. So I think it's good to share, the real insights that even great marriages, great healthy marriages, what actually goes on the inside. So maybe we can touch on that. So when within your book, you say in every marriage there will be some very difficult times. What are some examples of very difficult times? Because some people may define very difficult, quite differently to others.
Well, we see this with the couples that we counsel in a variety of forms. Sometimes they're planning the wedding, and she wants him to be more involved, and he doesn't want to be that involved, and his mother wants to be involved to have the wedding that she didn't have, and they start fighting, about the wedding. Sometimes it can occur when the first child is born. That can be a real shocking time, and as badly as they want the child, do you see that they're sleep deprived and they can be irritable and they can their life is turned upside down and they can have a hard phase. It's actually quite common, and they're so busy trying to up-level to become good parents that they're not keeping the couplehood in good shape. And the new baby's getting the attention. Sometimes it's a health crisis. Charlie and I are both cancer survivors, so we had difficult periods when we had medical challenges. Sometimes somebody gets downsized out of their job and they're out of work for a while. It can be depressing. It can leave you feeling insecure, and you can have a really harsh winter about your economic situation. So it can show up in many different ways. Sometimes it's the in-laws interfering, But if you're in partnership long enough, you are bound to have one or more really difficult winters. And sometimes people lose their relationship when they hit a difficult one because it looks like it's all cold and frozen and dead, and it's hard to know that spring is coming eventually, and if we do our work it's coming sooner, but things change. Even if we're not really on purpose, things will change, and the blooming can happen when things warm up. When we learn to be more forgiving, when we learn to let go, when we learn to prioritize a relationship, even with an infant that gets up 3 times in the night, even with interfering relatives, or even being out of work, or whatever the harsh winter tends to be. And that ordeal actually can end up promoting us to be stronger, each of us as individuals, and the relationship to be stronger. So I always offer that when we're teaching our students and when we're working with our clients, to be open to the possibility that the ordeal could ultimately, if you use it well, result in being stronger at the broken places.
Yeah. So Based on your experience, when these winters come, right? Say if it's a health problem, if it's the birth of a child, or something else, what actually ends up happening? Like, what are the key characteristics in a scenario like this that make marriage really difficult? I mean, I can obviously guess some of these things, but from your experience, what are the key characteristics you've noticed that you say, this is when a couple is in one of these really tough winters?
Well, a crisis is a circumstance or a situation that comes generally unexpectedly, and one in which we don't feel confident in our ability to manage the what's being demanded of us or what's being called forth from us.
Right.
And so there's the aspect of it that is has to do with our actual ability to deal with something in order to bring back into alignment the structure of our life. It's something that's disrupted our life in a way that we don't trust that we or our partner is able or sufficiently skilled to reestablish the equilibrium that we want to have. It's taken us out of that equilibrium, and things are disrupted. The interesting thing is that the word crisis in Chinese has two different characters, one of which means danger, the other one means opportunity. Right. So a crisis is a circumstance that is both dangerous but opportune in terms of it holding the possibility of expanding or enhancing our skill level. It's going to challenge us to develop strengths, skills that we may not have or that aren't sufficiently developed. Mm-hmm. It often feels like there's a strong tendency to try to reestablish the old pattern and do what we need to do to bring things back to what we feel is the correct order. Things are out of order here, and so we want to do that, and that impulse is going to activate resistance to each other, because we're both feeling, generally in a relationship, we're both feeling the same desire to get things back together in some way, but it's very likely that we're going to have different ideas about how to best do that, and so we're going to run into conflict with each other. So one of the things that we try to encourage people to do when they're in a state of concern about a disequilibrium in the relationship is to both get clear within themselves about what my ultimate intent is here. What is it that I want to have happen? Generally speaking, both people can find some common ground to stand on. We're not talking about how we're going to get there. We're talking about where do I want to go? Yeah. What is my intention in terms of this situation? I want to get back on track. I want us to feel connected and trusting again. I want our relationship to be more solid. So generally, if we can get aligned at the level of intention, then we can talk about different ways of getting there without activating a lot of anxiety in the other person.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's right. So then
Yeah.
Yeah. So then in a situation like this, it's really important that the couple have really good communication in terms
Absolutely. That's key.
Yes. Yeah, because I can imagine if there's so much going on, you're not communicating, your fears, your frustrations, your expectations, and from both sides, and then you can get so much misalignment that then it can result in further frustrations and whatnot.
Yes, it's just going to take you further apart. It's going to create more tension, more confusion, more resistance, and you will be communicating. But what you're going to be communicating is your anxiety, your fear, your frustration, your resentment. You're not going to be communicating in ways that are going to bring about alignment with each other. You're going to be creating antagonism and fear and mistrust, because you're both going to be, struggling to get the other person to do things the way you want them to do them. That's how we get when we get anxious and feeling insecure. Mm-hmm. We get controlling.
Right. So actually,
I often say to the people that I'm working with who are in the midst of the turmoil, the big challenge, the transition, it is mandatory for you to take time for yourself, to try to settle yourself down, to calm yourself down, to get in the hot tub, or to journal or meditate or do yoga or whatever settles you down, so that you can bring your best self to your partner. Hopefully they're taking time to fill up their soul tank that's running a little low by whatever method they put themselves back together, and then connect with each other. And when you're connected heart to heart and your anxiety is not through the roof, the chances that you're going to re-engage neocortex, the really creative part of the brain, to be able to work out some kind of a plan, put an action plan together, even if it's a long-term plan. You might have a short-term one to deal with the immediate crisis, and the longer-term one, but working together as team so that you can both get your needs met.
Right. So that's really valuable, and it makes me think, say for a couple, especially say, those who are new to the likes of a marriage, what can they do to help, prepare themselves for a scenario like this? If so, we're saying that, these winters are inevitable. You'll have, one or many within a marriage. How can you best prepare for that? And some of the things that makes me think is, do you need to establish good communication skills? Do you, what are a range of things that a couple can, what skills, abilities, habits that they can develop beforehand, so when a scenario like this does come about, they're more well equipped to deal with it?
Great question. And the preparation can ease the ordeal. Right. By taking time regularly for a check-in to self and a check-in with partner.
Yes.
To have that on a regular basis, I think daily practice is not too much. At least once a week. But more is better in this department. If people have a regular practice of being with each other, don't answer the phone, no tech devices, no texting, no tablets, no email, the TV is off, and the couple is connected with each other in a meaningful way. It may not necessarily be a lot of talking. Maybe you're holding hands, maybe you're gazing into each other's eyes, maybe there is some talking. And when you have a regular practice of being with each other, not living parallel lives, when you have a practice of being together, cooperative, deepening the friendship, you have each other's back. Then when the inevitable difficulty comes, you're positioned well because your bond has already been strengthened. And you've been practicing good communication skills, good negotiation skills, good conflict management skills, so that you've got a solid foundation, and your world will get rocked, but it won't rock you, out of the boat and throw you overboard into the dark night sea storm. Yeah. And I think that is very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, like you mentioned, in terms of being really, really tight and close. So then your partner understands if, for example, we're all going to be at different emotional levels, right? In a scenario like this. So I think if you're having a really hard time and you're short with your partner, or you're a bit more reserved, your partner can actually understand. It's like, I actually know this person. I know this is not their true self. Something's happening. Let me sit down. Let me try and understand.
That's right.
And so like having experienced something similar, like you mentioned, work. So a while back there was, I was made redundant, and there was a period where I was like, just very focused on, okay, what's my next steps? How do I go about this? And I was in a very different state of mind. And my wife was well aware of that. So her approach was very loving, very caring. Sat down. Okay, tell me, hey, what are you feeling? What's going on? And I felt that if we didn't have that strong connection, she could have just seen it as, why is he changed? Why is he gone like cold on me? I want to sit down, talk to him, but he's distracted. Like, what's going on? And I felt that that's not something that we could have created right then and there. It was as a result of everything we did beforehand.
And that's
go for it. No, I'll add it later.
Okay, that's a really good example of the point that we try to make in most of our books is that the time to do the work to deepen your connection with your partner and with yourself is not when the crisis hits, because it's too late then.
Yeah.
Because to develop the kind of empathy, and that's what your wife was able to give you, was an empathic connection. And empathy is the ability to understand on a feeling level what another person is experiencing. It's being able to relate to that on an experiential level. And the reason that that's so vitally important is to cultivate and strengthen your capacity to be empathic is because we get into relationships because for many reasons, but almost everyone includes this in their motivation for getting into relationship, which is the desire to be connected to another person so that I don't feel alone in my life. And empathy is an emotional connection that actually causes you to feel like you're not alone, that somebody understands me, somebody is treating me the way I needed to be treated right now, somebody is giving me what I need. They must really know what I'm experiencing, so I'm not alone. And when you can do that, that calms the person down who's feeling agitated and upset and worried or whatever, because they're not alone. We are going to get this, we're going to handle this situation. Somehow, together, we can do infinitely more. And we both believe this to be true. The two people are living from that connection can do infinitely more than either one of them can do individually.
That's right. I have two metaphors that I use, and my clients and students get them right away, so I'll offer it to your listening audience. One is you and your wife had hefty deposits in Karma Savings and Loan, so you wouldn't necessarily be in danger of overdrafts on your account because you had a hefty account. So you could hit a real rough place where you're taking on a big challenge professionally, or something comes up with health or a family member, and you got abundant account. The other one that I like is well-stocked base camp to go climbing. Well-stocked base camp.
Oh, well-stocked base camp, right.
Camp. So you could climb separately. Do you know the climb is the symbol of some life crisis that befalls you, like a health crisis or financial crisis or professional crisis, or it may be something chosen. Do you know? I feel sturdy and abundant, and I want to take on, learning to play a musical instrument or some big project at work or whatever that might be, and I have the stamina and the vigor and the motivation to do this, and I know that I can come back and the base camp is well stocked, that I can nourish myself and heal myself when I come back. And when you have that kind of a contract with your partner, awesome things are available to you that would not be available. So I'm totally with Charlie about how much is available to us that would not be available to a couple that didn't have a strong, base camp or an abundant karma savings and loan. And in fact, there's a lot of research about the happiest couples are the ones, the ones that have the most cooperation in their partnership. They're the ones that are really being successful in their careers and making a whole lot more money than the singles or the cohabitating couples or the couples that are married but aren't necessarily happy together. So there's tremendous possibilities of all kinds.
Yes. No, so I guess personally I can definitely relate to, investing up front for times like this. And I think it's, be able to really understand each other, know each other inside out. So, you don't get fooled into a particular behavior, misinterpreting that, to being able to understand when your partner needs you and maybe is not comfortable telling you they need you. So many different things, right? Everyone's a different character. And communication. So it's very cliche, right? But also knowing how to be able to communicate to your partner rather than just read my mind already,
Well, a lot of those old-fashioned guidelines and cliches turn out to be very true.
Mm-hmm.
They are. That those old, boring, repetitive things that we heard so often about, character traits and what it requires to really live a fulfilling life. Being responsible, being honest, having integrity. Those are the basics. The challenge for many of us is in order to be able to accept the weaknesses or flaws in another person, we have to be able to be self-accepting ourselves. We have to be accepting of our own, what we consider to be weaknesses or flaws or deficiencies or qualities that, we think are imperfect in some way. And again, it doesn't mean that means that we we indulge in behaviors that are hurtful to other people or ourselves, but it means that, we have certain personality aspects that are part of who we are. And the more we can be accepting of that and not, beat ourselves up because we have, certain traits that we're still working on, the more able we're going to be accepting of our partner. So ultimately, the work is about self-acceptance, which enables me to be accepting of you without judging you, because I can't accept anything in you that I haven't really accepted in me. You're gonna, if I have a thing about having being needy, that there are certain things that I need and I don't like that part of myself because it makes me too vulnerable, then I'm not going to be able to accept my partner's needs without judging them. But when
That's a hypothetical example, of course.
Right. Yeah. This is nothing personal. This is about a friend of mine who's got this issue. But when I can really accept that part of me, or any part of me, then I can accept that in another person without making them wrong and without judging them. And that's the source of a lot of arguments, of a lot of fighting, a lot of conflict in relationships. So ultimately, it's really about coming to terms with and accepting all of who we are.
Yeah.
You mentioned communication skills.
Yeah.
And everybody knows that relationships flourish when you have good communication skills, but they're often confused about what are good communication skills composed of, and make a really strong point of speak from your inner experience. Speak about your feelings and speak about your needs, because people think that they're, sharing and communicating when they're talking out of their mind, from their opinions, which are often critical and judgmental. And when you can speak from a more tender place, when you can speak from a more vulnerable, open place, that is right on good communication. Mm-hmm. And we always recommend to people, they know they're supposed to be making I statements, and they say I feel, and they're off to a good start, and then they go into the judgment. They begin
the statement with I feel, and then the next,
you're an asshole.
And then the next
they ruined it.
I feel that you.
So if you really want to have good communication, you have to be scrupulous about I feel, and then really stay with your own experience, with your own feelings.
That's probably a good topic to cover at another time. Communication itself, it's quite important, and there's a lot to it. But I think for the sake of today, in terms of the topic of recurring seasons of winters that come through in a marriage, this was really, really insightful. Maybe we'll leave it there. Even though I'd love to continue digging through, but just to make this more digestible and palatable for viewers and listeners. So thank you so much for your time again, Linda and Charlie. It's been wonderful, and I'm looking forward to continuing this series on a range of other topics, which I'm sure a lot of people will find valuable and insightful.
Great.
It's
always a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right.